film to discuss movies either current, which is a little harder in today's climate, or classic, which is something we'll be leaning on definitely in today's episode, this week's episode. We are going to be celebrating the 40th anniversary of Friday the 13th. And the fact that it's 40 years old now just kind of blows my mind. We'll talk more about that in a second. But before we get to our movie conversation this week, let me introduce you to my fantabulous co-hosts who literally I couldn't do the show without. Jim Pugliafico is here with us. Hey, sweetheart. How you doing?
Hi, and welcome to the podcast, everyone. It's going to be a fun one. So hang on, get your bathing suits, and let's head on down to the waterfront.
All right. Well, so glad to have you with us as we explore Camp Crystal Lake, sweetheart. Please just, don't have sex and do drugs because you'd probably die.
Don't have a boner on the dock,
Stay soft, stay safe.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Will Lindis is here with us as well. Welcome, Will. How are you?
Wait, did I hear? Are you camp counselors about to have sex?
Yeah.
Stab, 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 stab.
Sex
Everybody knows on a Friday the 13th movie, you don't have sex because that's when Jason gets you. Want to be a little bit careful of that for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I'm very excited to talk about this movie with you fellas. It's kind of crazy that this movie is 40 years old at this point. I'm curious, before we get to our main movie discussion, we'll get there, but Will, given that you and I are, similar in age, I'm wondering how early in your life did you see this movie? Do you remember?
Very early. I think we talked a little bit about this in our I forget which episode it was, but just in the last couple of weeks, maybe Jaws. I saw a lot of horror movies growing up with my mother. That's what we did. When we went down to the local rental store, I would find the B and the C and the D rated horror movies. And that's what I would watch. And so Friday the 13th was a very early watch for me. I don't think I started with this one. I probably started with one of the ones further into the life cycle, definitely in the hockey mask era of Friday the 13th. But absolutely, this one was a VHS classic that I probably rented a few times as a kid.
Wow. The fact that you rented this film as a kid is pretty interesting to me because I think about my experience. I was really not supposed to watch horror movies when I was young, according to my mom. But according to my dad, I could watch horror movies all day long at, 5 years old, 4 years old. So it's one of those things where I didn't intentionally seek it out. I wasn't supposed to see it. But one point, my dad's like, "Hey, son, your mom's out of town with her girlfriends. Let's watch a movie." I'm like, "Sure, Dad," at 5 years old. And this is what he puts on. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if I do.
How was your sleep that night, Brad?
I didn't sleep that night. Are you fucking crazy?
There is a scene in this movie. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it later on. But there is one specific scene in this movie that does make laying down in bed to try to get to sleep especially difficult when you're a kid, because you immediately imagine, what if blank thing that happens to me?
Right. Oh, goodness. Hey, guys, Steve Zosa. Hey, Steve. Whoa. It's been a little while. Says, "Sup, my dudes. Miss you guys. Stay safe. Can't stick around, but wanted to say hello."
My dude.
Yeah, another dude from Texas joining us. Been a while, and it's good to see your name pop up here, Steve. Come back again. I know you can't stay long tonight, but come back again and bring a friend next time you can stay.
You're taking me back to church days when I was a kid, Jim.
Oh, really?
Oh God, yeah, like Baptist
Bring a
church,
friend.
like, all right, you all have a great week, and when you come back next weekend, make sure you bring your friends to hear the word
Take
of the
me
Lord.
to church. Yeah.
Never
Gosh,
happened
Steve,
in my church.
it's
Never
so good
happened.
to
No.
see you, Steve. It's so good to see you say hello, and yeah, I hope you're staying safe as well.
Yeah, for sure. We love you, Steve. And it's kind of cool. The streaming platform that we're using just launched a simulcast feature. So now we can broadcast to Facebook and YouTube live at the same
Yeah.
time. I know a few of our listeners don't use Facebook, including Sammy W. in Denver. Sammy, if you're out there, we love you too. So being on Facebook Live the last few weeks and not YouTube, those folks haven't been able to watch or listen live. So now you can. Dun, 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 dun. So hopefully that allows you folks to rejoin us and be part of the fun. Looks like we've got several folks with us in the live chat already. We've got, oh my gosh,
good.
a lot of people watching. It seems like Friday the 13th may be a popular movie, guys. Folks may want to join in the discussion.
Weird how that works, right? Especially for an anniversary. I think there's something about like, okay, yeah, we're talking about a movie, that's great, but watching a movie and celebrating like sort of a major milestone, 40 years. I don't know, there's something that helps sort of like build that community or makes you just kind of want to be a part of the fun. So I'm glad that, if it was just the three of us talking about this movie tonight, I would be fine. That would be wonderful. But the fact that we have so many of our friends with us joining us in digital space, all the better. All the better.
Agreed. Definitely. Well, let's chat a little bit about our format for this discussion, because it's going to be a little bit different. Typically, when we talk about a newer film within the last, 15 years, we do this thing where we do a non-spoiler section for anyone who hasn't seen it. Then we give you a chance while we awkwardly ramble to step away, skip ahead, whatever. And then we do our spoiler section. But given that Friday the 13th is 40 years old, a lot of folks have already seen it. If you haven't yet, honestly, I don't know that the spoilers would detract from your experience anyway. But we're going to jump right into spoilers with this one. So if you haven't seen Friday the 13th, just kind of bear that in mind. Chances are pretty good, though, you probably have. Although one of my Facebook friends said this week they've never seen a single Friday the 13th movie, and they kind of wanted a gold star about it, which is probably a different conversation. It was like this, I've never watched a single episode of Game of Thrones, people attitudes. But yeah, it's
Whatever.
a thing. Not everyone's seen it.
Yeah.
It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Some people wear that badge of honor. You know what I mean? Unsullied by these popular pop culture phenomena. Sometimes eventually they come around and weaken and give in to the dark side. But we'll talk about whether Friday the 13th is worth giving up your gold star for.
Hey, Jim, not to be that asshole that points out an obvious joke, but was that play on words intentional?
Unsullied?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. I was just like, hey, well, the reason why is, Jim, is just like you didn't like wink and nudge or nod or giggle as you did it. You just like snuck it in so smoothly. So tip
style.
of my hat to you, good sir.
I don't often, have them, so I don't know. I'm not one to draw attention usually.
Dovagetis Dracarys. Now I need to rewatch that show.
No.
Oh my god.
Actually, no, I don't need to rewatch that show because they never made the final season for it, and I'll feel unfulfilled.
Different
anyway,
episode.
That's one of the discussion.
Here we go. Different discussion.
All right, listen, it is time for our Friday the 13th conversation. Bear that in mind as you will. Spoilers will totally be fair game. But we're going to talk about that film for probably 45-ish minutes, and then we're going to do some plugs at the end. We'll put some things on your radar that we're kind of excited about, we think are fun for you to maybe check out. So stick around. Here we go. Our discussion of Friday the 13th.
Nice.
Did you guys hear something? I'm gonna go. Mark and I are gonna go check things out. We'll be back.
Kill them, mommy. Kill them all.
Oh, we like to have a little fun on this show. If you're listening to the audio version only, you missed out on our fun little play, me wearing a hockey mask and Will and Jim pretending to be frightened teenage girls and drowning boys in a lake. So Daniel Jensen says, "You're not a virgin. You're safe." Daniel, I'm going to take umbrage with that because I'm pretty sure those teens were like dicking down way before they came to Camp Crystal Lake.
That's right. Kevin Bacon, he was making bacon before this movie started.
Well, considering this was right on the heels of Animal House, yeah.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Kevin Bacon was footloose and fancy free with his virginity way before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's an interesting angle, though, that Daniel brings up. We'll talk about that. I don't know how that applies to this film or not, but we'll definitely talk about that. Thanks for bringing that up, Dan.
Yeah, for sure. Well, to kick the conversation off properly, sweetheart, if you wouldn't mind maybe introducing this film and, tell us a little bit about your experience. Did you see this in theaters? Was this something you caught on Betamax or VHS when it came out?
No, not at all. I went to the movie theater on its release weekend in the early summer of 1980. Made a huge impression on me. I mean, I wasn't a kid. I wasn't, 5 years old and, hiding in the closet. But this film still made a pretty big impression on me. And that's after seeing, John Carpenter's 1978 masterpiece, Halloween, which I think kind of sets a different standard. And I don't think this measures up to that at all. In fact, I think this one feels almost like a B movie, kind of in comparison to something like Halloween. But however, I still think it as a B movie, I think it stands up really well. And I've really enjoyed watching it after. I mean, I've probably watched this movie like 4 or 5 times in my life, including this past week, babe, when we watched it together. But it was fun watching it with you. But so we'll just get into it. Camp Crystal Lake's dark and sinister history doesn't deter a group of teen counselors from working to reestablish the remote summer camp 20 years after sinister things. Against warnings from superstitious townspeople, the teens do what self-absorbed teens do, only to find themselves stalked by a brutal killer. As they're slashed, shot, and stabbed, the counselors struggle to stay alive against a merciless opponent. A very young Kevin Bacon and notable name Harry Crosby are familiar teen faces and names from this movie. This one's directed by Sean S. Cunningham, with a screenplay by Victor Miller. This one's considered to be kind of a prototype for the summer camp slasher subgenre of horror, I would say. It was intending from the get-go, the filmmakers here were intending from the get-go to kind of capitalize on the success of John Carpenter's Halloween. No doubt about it. That came out just 2 years earlier and was a sensation. So it was kind of riding the wave, if you will. However, this film did enjoy its own huge success, spawned 11 sequel films so far. Still waiting for them to get to that number 13 because that's going to be awesome. Friday the 13th. Get it? But yeah.
Wait, hold on.
I
cue the graphic.
Ready?
All right.
This film kind of holds a special place in my heart. I know it's not the best slasher film ever made. It's like I said, to me it feels like a B film, especially today. But I just love the sensibilities that this film has. It goes after it. It's straight ahead, doesn't fuck around, and try to do anything really, to draw attention to itself. It's got some cool surprise moments that we'll talk about, and we may want to talk about. I think, did we already say we're going to include spoilers yet?
We're spoiling the shit out of this thing, so go.
Yeah, we're gonna spoil it. So it's got some pretty good. I won't say jump scares. It's not. It's got some terrifying moments, and I would say it has maybe a jump scare or two. But the ones it has, I think, are pretty effective, and the reveals that it has, I think, are very effective. So yeah, I'm all on board with Friday the 13th. The sequels, the 11 sequels, not so much. I never really liked any of them, which is strange because it's the series. When people think about this movie, they think about Jason, right? They think about Jason. Jason is kind of the image, but Jason's really not even in this movie practically. I mean, he gets a flash here and a flash there, and it's done. So think about that for a minute. Let that sink in. How the sequels have kind of formed people's, how they think about this movie. But yep, I've said enough. I really like Friday the 13th.
All right, so it's a big old like from Jim. Will, I know you saw this one early in your childhood, but is this one of your beloved horror movies of all time? Can you kind of take this one or leave it? Where do you come down?
First of all, this is a beloved horror movie for me for a couple of different reasons. One,
cat butt.
Because of cat butt. No, there's cat butt on Brad's frame right now, unrelated to my point. So this one is beloved for me. One, I watched it a bunch as a kid, the same with all of the Friday the 13th movies. And while this one isn't my favorite, I think 2 has the best final girl and 4 has kind of the best total package. This one stands up there. And what's great about that is this is an important film, and it's a good film, and it's one I enjoy. And at the same time, it is 100% a cash grab, and it's okay to recognize that it was a cash grab at the time. You have this sort of interesting story that got us to where Friday the 13th was. You have, after all of the restrictions and codes on movies sort of fell away in the decades prior, you started to see more violent and sex exploitation films coming out, especially in the 70s. You had Seamus Cunningham, the director of this. He had cut his teeth through the 70s doing these like sexploitation films, and he knew he wanted to get in on something horror related. He became really good friends with Wes Craven in the 70s. Wes Craven shoots off like an absolute bolt after doing Last House on the Left in like 72 or so. And we've got Cunningham just sort of flailing, trying to figure this out. So you, of course, then have, you mentioned it, Jim, you have 78's Halloween. And he gets together with his buddy, writer Victor Miller, who was much more of like a comedy / like drama writer. And said, hey, let's just get one of these. Let's kind of shit it out and kind of like ride this wave. And so they do that. And they blatantly, they take some of the story beats from Psycho. They take some of the story beats from Halloween. They take some of the camp elements from like there's like an Italian horror movie called Bay of Blood from like the early 70s. And they just said, let's get this together really quick, put it out, get a bunch of people, like a bunch of like young kids who are coming off of like soap operas and Broadway, have them do their own stunts and film things over a few days and see what happens. This was a cash grab. It just so happens that it was a cash grab where all of the right elements hit at the exact right time. What ended up coming from this film was nothing in this film was necessarily original in and of itself. Every single one of those like horror cliches that you think about is completely lifted from earlier things. But this is the film that congeals them and popularizes them. Without this film, you don't have the 80s horror craze the way that it does. You don't have the kind of the meta wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you have sex, you'll die stuff from like Scream or from pretty much any movie of the 90s that reference those types of things. You obviously don't have Jason coming back, who was a weird, like the writer did not write the whole Jason thing into existence. That was added in sort of at the last minute by Tom Savini, who's the the effects guy had said, hey, we need to get another writer on board and put something else in here because it needs another twist. There's all of these things that sort of build and build and build off of each other to create this thing that I think its legacy and the things that stand on its shoulders are way stronger and way more important than the quality of the film itself. That said, the quality of the film itself is still a fine little slasher watch. Yeah. It does the trick. You have a mystery element to it. You have the POV elements lifted from Jaws and Psycho, which are incredibly effective here because it is sort of a whodunit. You have some amazing kill effects by, I mentioned him before, by effects legend Tom Savini, who does. Maybe the effects are a little dated when you look at them now, but at the time, this was some next level shit just in terms of the way that they made their gore work. And all on a shoestring budget for $500,000 altogether, everything. This film ended up raking in something like 40 million domestic for Paramount that year, like 60 million international. It and Airplane were the two biggest moneymakers for Paramount that year. And because of that, the slasher genre was maybe not born, but I think that it sort of grew into adulthood starting with this film. So as a child of the 80s who loved his slasher films, I have nothing but love and respect for this film. And I'm happy to celebrate, holy shit, 40 years of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I know. The whole 40 years thing just like blows my mind because I was born in 81, so this movie came out a year before I was born, and like I said earlier, we didn't really, my dad and I didn't really watch it till several years after it had already been out. I think he had it on an old VHS. There may have also been porn on that VHS. My memory is a little fuzzy. I remember him like stopping it real quick after the movie because I wasn't supposed to see something. And I'm like, well, if I wasn't supposed to see gory death, why was all that skin bad to see? Anyway. But yeah, it's interesting. I think back, Will, you mentioned Scream. And that's one of my favorite horror movies because it actually scares me because I know people are batshit crazy enough to like, put on a costume and like murder each other. Whereas like the Freddy Krueger movies and the Jason movies, I mean, they're scary, but there's sort of a supernatural element to them, right? That makes them very much like not believable. Like, oh, a demon in your dreams is going to kill you, Freddy Krueger? Like, okay, it's scary to watch on screen, but like it's not that traumatizing. But what's interesting about Friday the 13th, the first movie, there's no supernatural element at all. It's a mom whose son drowned because the camp counselors who should have been watching him were like smoking dope and dicking down, and he died on their watch. And so she takes revenge. She kills a couple camp counselors. The camp closes down a few years later. They're going to try and reopen the camp, and she's having none of it. And so, there's no like Jason, the teleporting supernatural back from the dead zombie killer element to this. It's just a pissed off mom in a lavender like cardigan sweater that somehow doesn't get bloody at all until, she gets dispatched by the final girl. Taking
she had
her
several sweaters.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe she had
she had
like,
several sweaters. Yeah.
Maybe there was like a secret closet in one of the cabins she just kept returning to and like changing her sweater after every kill.
Right. With just turtleneck cable sweaters.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what makes this original movie more scary to me than all of the films that followed, right? Like when you introduce that supernatural element to it, Jason back from the dead, and now he's taking his own revenge. That's still scary. I mean, still a guy chasing after you with a machete. But it doesn't have the same, I guess, like stakes of gravitas as like a pissed off mom who wants to get back at people who wronged her. So even when we were watching this movie the other night, sweetheart, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, there's a lot of pissed off moms out there right now. What if all of those pissed off moms decided to get their biggest knife from their butcher block and their like nicest sweater out of their closet and go on a rampage, we would be fucked.
Karen the 13th.
Oh my God.
Right. Yo, that Will, you need to write that shit now.
Hold on. Let me write that.
Karen the 13th.
And done. Let me see if Paramount will. They blocked me. Okay, they blocked me.
We could film that. We could make a short right now.
Filmed in isolation. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. That'd be so great.
But you're absolutely right, Brad. And I mean, I think the reveal of the killer in this one, because it does have a mystery element, right? It's very well concealed until the very end, when she reveals it herself that, you know, she's a pissed off mom. And it took me by surprise. In fact, it had been so long since I saw this movie, right? I knew the mom was a killer. But then my memory was playing tricks on me. I'm like, well, Jason's in this movie, right? Dude, I'm going to see Jason in this movie. And then I'm like, how can we have his mom be the killer and Jason in the movie? It doesn't make sense. And it wasn't, Brad will tell you until the end. I'm like, I think I remember how this movie ends, but I'm not sure. So I was kind of surprised, not surprised, but I was impressed all over again with the way kind of this movie went. And then, of course, I remembered the final scare at the end being, which I thought was genius. It probably, I'm trying to figure out like how much that final jump scare at the end like got audiences out of that theater telling their friends, oh my God, you got to see this movie, stay to the end. You'll have the shit scared out of you, whatever. Probably brought in a lot of people.
Just to clarify, are you talking about the moment where like dead Jason comes up out of the lake and drags her out of the canoe?
The lake moment. I think that was brilliant. I don't know if that was written in late in the script or how that worked, but Will, you may have something on that, but I thought it was brilliant. I think that might have just put the bow on the movie that made it that successful.
That was written in remarkably late, so much so that the main writer of this, Victor Miller, takes great issue with this film, even to this day.
Wow.
What ended up happening was he was really interested in this. Like, again, this was, I mentioned before, he was really into like, he wanted to like write comedies and dramas. Like horror was not what he did. He was just friends with director Cunningham.
Yep,
he writes this story that is about a mother and her loss and the son, and it's very much a grounded story. It's also borrows very much from Psycho, but that's a different conversation entirely. But so the effects guy, Tom Savini, was talking to Cunningham at a certain point towards the end of this and says there's something's missing from the end of this film. Like some of the films that had come out in the years prior, it had like a little like hook, like a little like stinging terror or something that happens at the end to sort of like keep you invested. And this film didn't really have that at that point. So Paramount brought in this guy named Ron Kurtz, I think, and had him do a bunch of changes to the script that Victor Miller didn't approve. And what ended up happening is Victor Miller got really pissed. It was like, for a while, there's like some litigious stuff, and he still like disavows that. And that said, if we didn't have that moment there at the end, we would not probably have the franchise that we would have from it. I think this would have been this would have been a one and done without that. So, you know, who's to say if that? I would guess that, you know, Paramount and most like slasher fans would say that that was an addition that was made for the better. But certainly, when your main writer of your script is pissed off and is distancing himself from the property, that is still like it leaves a sour taste in the mouth.
It definitely brought it. Go ahead, Brad, babe. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It definitely brought that kind of that what's the word I'm looking for? Supernatural kind of element into a film that really didn't have it at that point. So maybe that's why the writer got upset, because he wasn't writing that kind of movie, and then they just stuck that in at the end.
Well, it's interesting too, because I don't think we know if that actually happened or if she imagined it. At least in my mind. Like, you know, we see her on the canoe, and you know, it's the next morning. The Thornbird's music is playing, everything's all lovely and golden and nice. And all of a sudden, Jason's like jumping out of the water and dragging her. And then she wakes up and she's in the hospital and she's like, well, what happened to the boy? And they're like, well, we found you in the lake. Like, we didn't find a boy. So it's like, well, did that happen? Or did she like imagine that and fall in the water herself? We kind of don't know. And I think the fact that it's left up in the air like that makes it an effective moment without stealing the power of Mama Voorhees being the killer in the first film.
Absolutely agreed. I think that if we had followed that up with, another 10 minutes of like kid Jason running around with, a garden trowel, just like disemboweling kids or something like that, completely different tone and completely derails what we came here for, which is Mama Voorhees going on her revenge tour. It's especially sad too, because maybe not sad, but it's especially interesting sort of to think about in context, because they did some effects work on Jason that made him look very monstrous as he came out of the water. And this was another thing that the scriptwriter had such a big issue with. He wrote a story about a kid with some mental difficulties who died as a result of negligence and the mother's revenge. And sort of that story was sort of taken out from beneath him, and that kid was now turned into this deformed killing monster, even if it was just in like a dream sequence or whatever there at the end. It changed sort of that seed of what he was going for. That said, we're not here just to talk about the script writing. I think we're also here to talk about some of them fun kills, because that's what a slasher is all about.
Yeah. Although before we do, want to give a quick shout out to someone I haven't talked to in a hot minute. Patrick Hoover is in the live chat with us. Hey, Patrick, good to see you. He says, happy to find you guys doing this. We miss you, bud. Hope you're doing well.
It's been many years. Too many. Glad you found us.
And don't go out into the woods, Patrick.
Yeah, especially if you're going to have sex and smoke dope, because you're going to get it.
But, them kills, right?
Yeah. So
let's talk about some of those.
So I think Kevin Bacon, who, by the way, we mentioned it earlier, but this is like his second feature film or something. His first was he had a minor appearance in Animal House, which is another classic. But apparently that didn't make him a star. And then he ended up in this film as one of the teens. And I think he probably gets the best, probably the second best kill for me in the movie, in terms of him having just, I think, had sex in one of the camp cabins and getting the old arrow through the neck from under the bed scene, which apparently traumatized Will really badly. The blood spurting out of his neck and mouth terribly.
When you think about Savini and his effects work, I think that if you're building his demo reel, you're building the Kevin Bacon gets the arrow through the neck scene into that. Again, when you look back at it, you can very obviously see how they did that effect. And it's very easy to sort of go like, well, technically you can tell that it's not really a real neck. And if you look here, but at the time that was
like that.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. Like, while the effect is dated in some places, it holds up. Like it holds up in the moment. And at the time it was groundbreaking, the stuff that he was doing. And again, for not a crazy big budget, all things considered, that kill was absolutely top notch. It was the one I mentioned in the preamble about like when you go to sleep and then you sort of like you need to check underneath the bed. You're checking under there. Yeah, maybe the boogeyman's under there, but maybe the boogeyman is actually just laying under there with an arrow ready to stab it upwards. 100%. I thought that a lot when I was a kid and had to check way too many times.
Will, you're not alone. Patrick Hoover says that traumatized me as well about someone under my bed. So it's not just you.
That's what you get for having parents that drag you to these movies at 5 years old.
It was a bonding moment.
Sorry about your childhood.
Yeah, sorry about my childhood. No, it was a bonding moment for me and my mom. We would watch these, and it wasn't just the slasher ones. We'd watch like the ones that were like monsters and stuff too. Some sort of mutated bear or crocodile or bee or whatever it is kills a bunch of people in a local area. Like, I watched all that crap as a kid too. And those ones didn't scare me as much because they were so silly that you can't really be too affected by them.
Why didn't they pay more attention to Crazy Ralph? They should have just listened to Crazy Ralph from the get-go, right?
If you go
Crazy
back
Ralph,
up to Camp Blood, you're gonna die.
The Harbinger. We've seen this character show up in several movies before and after, the person warning the kids, like, don't go up to the cabin or you'll get killed. But Ralph is an interesting one because since this is also a whodunit mystery, Ralph is one of the primary suspects for quite a bit, going into this blind, not knowing about the history of like Jason in the hockey mask and whether or not it's him or not knowing about the mom. You're really left like on a cold watching of this, like without any other context, thinking, okay, well, maybe it's that crazy Ralph guy, or maybe it's that weird, creepy police guy that came by, or maybe it's even, the head counselor. Maybe it's the guy that drove the truck. There's a lot of like these, maybe it's so-and-so early on. And again, for a whodunit, that's what you need. You need a cast of people that it could be.
Right. Right. So, guys, we were talking earlier about how successful this film was. Any idea, without looking, and I already looked, so sorry for cheating. Any idea in terms of 1980 where this film ranked in the films of 1980 box office?
Number 4.
Domestic box office wise.
I'll guess number 4.
Okay, Brad's got 4. So these are Price is Right rules, right? You can't. Yeah. Never mind. I'm right.
I know this one made like 40 million domestic. It was behind Airplane. I'm gonna say a little further down than 4. Let's call it like 8.
This film, believe it or not, was number 15 that year.
Oh,
wow.
So here's what we at 40 million, right? So here's what we had for its competition. Think about this for a movie year. I'm going to go up the list instead of starting at the top. So Caddyshack, right? Cheech and Chong. The Shining was 1980. Ordinary People. The Blues Brothers was a big comedy hit that year.
Mm-hmm.
Smokey and the Bandit, the second one. Coal Miner's Daughter. Listen to some of these movies. Kramer versus Kramer. 9 to 5.
Oh, yeah.
Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. So all of those films were ahead of this. So that's competition right there. Those films might be one of the best years ever.
Complete side note. Just pause on Friday the 13th. Should we do a 9 to 5 episode sometime?
We really should. We really should. And now I kind of want to make this YouTube video that's like scenes of Mama Voorhees, like, killing and fighting, but it's set to the 9 to 5 song. How cool would that be?
Working 9 to 5, gonna kill some teenagers.
Killing 9 to 5.
Wow.
Tumble out of bed, put on my sweater.
And we just got a copyright strike.
Patrick had a question in chat. He says, question, why are the chubby guys always portrayed as goofs and killed? That's a good question, and it does happen in a lot of movies. Did we have a chubby guy in this movie?
I don't think we had a chubby guy. Well,
Not in this
the
one.
guy who drops Christy or whatever the fuck her name is off, like on the like he gives her a ride. The trucker, isn't he kind of chubby? He doesn't get killed.
Oh, he's chubby,
but he doesn't get killed, does he?
No, I'm just saying. Like, I think he's the only chubby guy.
He is, and he doesn't get killed.
Yeah, he makes it through this one, but it's a very, very true point. I mean, even I think you have what's his name, Shelby in Friday the 13th Part 2 is the comedy relief chubby guy. You have the brother in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He was wheelchair bound in that one, but he was also a little hefty as well. You do have a little string around this area of just like, if you're the chubby friend in this one, you're not making it through the midway point.
No, well, sure, because first of all, you can't run fast enough to get away, and really nobody can from Jason. And B, it's weird. No one's going to have sex with the chubby guy, so why does he die?
Hello.
This is also the era of the final girl too, and the point of these movies is getting whoever our chosen protagonist is across the finish line. And here we have Alice, who was, I mean, if you look at the grand arc of final girls in horror movies, I don't think that she's necessarily like top tier. She's not a Nancy from Friday the 13th. She's not a Laurie Strode. I would say that she's maybe not even a Ginny from the second one. But I love this actress, Adrian King, and I feel kind of shitty about kind of like what ended up happening with her. She had so this movie took off like crazy, right? And everyone was just like, not Jason mania, but like slasher movie mania after this. And she developed like a bunch of like fans that would like stalk her. And one of them stalked her so much and like held her at gunpoint. And it was just a terribly traumatic experience. She quit acting after that one, minus she agreed to come back for the second one for a very brief scene. And then she stopped acting for 2 decades, only coming back, I think, in like 2011 to do some kind of very light stuff. But she was just done. She realized that sort of being in the limelight was a very real risk to her life and her safety.
Yeah, that's a shame. I know that I really liked her in this movie, and someone reminded me that she was like the first person killed in the second movie.
Yeah, she dies within like the first 5 minutes in her apartment.
Ice pick to the head.
Oh yeah, that's
spoilers for part 2.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to be in movies anymore. Well, yeah. We'll help you with that. Apparently. So Sam Roberts Duarte, who's joining us.
Hey Sam.
Sammy, how you doing? He says when we went camping as kids, my friend used to scare us doing the Jason sound. Brad, this is your time. I was reading about that sound. Apparently, somebody says that it's a heavily modified sound of the voice in Mama Voorhees' head going kill and then ma. But it's heavily affected.
Interesting.
That's correct. Although it does come across sounding like the because what the music guy on this, which is Harold Manfredi, I think. He took the kill and the ma and he put it into this reverb system that kept like reverbing it. So even though he's saying kill and ma in it, what you're hearing is the like that part repeating and the which is why you get the sound. So it's like one of those ones where it's like, yeah, like the trivia question is the kill, ma. But if you really want to creep someone out, you got to do it the way Brad did it, because that's the way the ears hear it, and it's perfect.
Fun story, bro. When I was a teenager, there was this TV show that talked about like different horror movies and like fun little facts about it and And I tried Google searching this and I didn't find anything about it. So maybe this TV show was just wrong. But they had said that the also contained a subliminal message in the text, which was chiff, 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 pop, pop, pop. Get people to buy popcorn.
They were selling Jiffy Pop.
And they got in trouble.
If this were anywhere else in the whole era of 80s horror, I would be completely down for that. But this first one was so much of a happy acts, like all of these happy accidents all happening at the same time, that I don't know if I could give them enough credit to think that there's like a like a put on the 3D glasses and see the hidden message thing kind of intentionally dropped in this. But I love that. And Brad, because you've said that, now I kind of want popcorn. So I think there is something to this whole subliminal message thing.
Yeah, it was something about like drive-ins, like putting their own like vocal track like mixed in with the kill thing.
Ah.
Yeah. So
this really hurts not being not having movie theater popcorn for months will do this to you, Will. This is what it'll do to you. Not getting that smell of like walking into a movie theater and having that popcorn smell.
Oh my god.
Or having a little a little bucket or a bag of popcorn at the movies.
Jim.
It's killing me.
Galaxy Theater, which is like less than a mile from our house, sells popcorn to go. We need to go get some and then watch.
So does the Loft, by the way. So does the Loft. They have
yeah, but the Loft is a 35-minute drive away. Galaxy is 2.
Yeah, that's true. We could ride bikes over and get it.
That's a great idea.
Hold on. While I love this idea, what's your mechanism of safely transporting the popcorn back? Like, just put it in a backpack?
I have a backpack.
Just a backpack full of popcorn?
A backpack?
That sounds like a great day to me.
I don't hate that idea. Like, as I start off sort of pooing the idea, and now I'm just imagining just like, ooh, popcorn. I'm just going to reach back here in my JanSport. Butter, yeah. So, yeah.
It is JanSport, so there's that.
So take my criticism and take my poo-pooing and just like throw it out the fucking window. You get on your bike and you get yourself some of that movie theater popcorn, because I am now absolutely supportive and in love with this idea.
Yeah,
get on your bikes and ride.
My bike has like a little thing over the back wheel that you strap stuff onto. It could also use that to carry the popcorn back. Especially if we got a giant bag. Remember, how about if we got one of those giant bags of popcorn that's like as big as a person's torso? You know what I mean? And put that up on the bike and ride that home.
Oh, hey, you know what else would fit on the thing on the back of your bike, babe?
What?
Mama V's fucking decapitated head.
Oh yeah, that was my favorite kill actually. I just think the build up to kind of that, like they just revealed that she's a fucking psychopathic, murderous mother maniac, and she's coming after our final girl, and in super slow motion she gets her head chopped off, and then it takes like a half a minute for her body to fall to the ground.
There are so many great things about that. You've got Betsy Palmer, who she's this like classic actress of the 50s. Like, I'm talking like she dated like James Dean. She was sort of in that tier. She gets this script that she thinks is shit. She says like this is a shitty script, but legend has it that her car had like broken down beforehand, and they were offering her $1,000 a day to film this thing, and they needed her on set for like 10 days. And she said, well, that'll cover it. So she does this movie. And because it's a low budget film, all of that fighting and all of that stuff that they're doing when they're swinging and they're punching, they have no stunt people. They're just doing that themselves. Like, that's just Betsy Palmer and Adrian King just like swinging and chopping and shoving each other. And then when they go to do that decapitation, they have one of the special effects guys like crouching down with this like foam head on his like foam like neck that's on his shoulder blades. And when she swings it, it knocks that aside, and it gives you some super cool Easter eggs there. Cause like they have it held on by toothpicks. And so when you watch it, you can see like the toothpick sticking out of the neck stump where it was holding there. And then you see Mama V's hands come up and she's like, no, no, no. But she's got these hairy hands and hairy knuckles because it's the effects guy that's playing her in that scene. And it's one of those things where it's just like, I say all of this with absolute love. They took something that was very low budget, but they shot it in such a way and at such a action-packed emotional climax, and they use that slow motion and they do that cut to Alice's face of just like, oh my gosh, what have I just done? You don't stop there and look at the toothpicks and you don't look at her hands. You look at this woman being decapitated and you think, oh my God, that's horrific. And also, oh my God, the nightmare is over. And that's good storytelling.
And right. And what I got out of that was like in Halloween, right? At the end, you know, the Michael gets shot like a few times, right? And he falls and you think he's dead, right? End of the movie. Doesn't he die like 2 or 3 times at the end of that movie and then like comes back to life? This movie actually subverts those expectations by like, okay, we're just going to chop her fucking head off. She is not coming back. You knew that she was not going to come back from that. So in a way, it was a much, you know, for those of us who kind of hate that old trope of like, oh, the murder, you know, the killer's not really dead. He's going to come back and get you. To kind of put a stake in it and you know, call it done at that point, I think was really good.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Guys,
what?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay. What we have here, for those that are listening later on, we have a picture that shows Mama V facing off with Alice. Alice has the label that says the manager, whereas Mama V has the label that says Karen. Oh my God, yes. And I love that this is great. Karen's going after that manager, but the manager gets the last laugh at the end, right?
that's fucking right.
Can we tweet that tonight?
Sure, I'll send it to you.
All right.
Do as you will.
We're tweeting that tonight.
The customer, I guess, is not always right.
Not in this case.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
Wow, indeed, is what Colin Cresno says. Hey, handsome, it's been a hot
Hey,
minute.
Colin.
Good to see you.
Hey, Colin.
How are you?
Wow.
Thanks for joining us. Oh boy.
The other thing that this movie really launched was, up until this point, you had kind of studio films and indie studios, and they sort of operated in isolation, and you'd have some crossover. This was the first independent horror film that then got picked up and distributed by a major studio. So you know how we have this whole thing now where, like, for example, like the Blumhouses of the world, like, pick up these films and distribute them under those. You can trace that back to Paramount winning the bidding war on this. I guess Warner Brothers got the international distribution, but like Paramount like won this indie film. And it's hard to think about like Friday the 13th as an indie film, but that's kind of how it was shot.
Yep. It definitely kind of feels that way when you know, it doesn't really feel like a studio movie. It definitely has that independent film feel.
That
especially in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, we have a comment from Les Hibbard. Les is amazing. I miss seeing Les. But Les says, hey, sexy guys with a bear symbol and a heart shape. Les, good to hear from you. Thank you for the compliment. You are equally sexy. Thanks so much for tuning in. I think this may be the first time we've seen you pop up on the show. Good to see you.
It's always great to have people listening live. Like, I'm seeing a lot of new and returning faces in chat and on the live stream today, which is exciting for me. You know, like we always say, and I think I said earlier, if it was just me talking with Brad and Jim, I would have a great evening. But the fact that we're doing this and we're hearing from all of you, and you guys are sending us so much love, and we're feeling that and we're receiving that. It just makes it all the much better. So thank you so much for spending your evening with us.
Yeah, we appreciate you very much, whether you're joining in from Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're coming from, whether you're listening on digital tape delay, via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever the fuck you're coming from. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Brad, did you ever play the Friday the 13th game?
Well, it's so eerie that you bring that up, because I was just about to ask if you guys were familiar with the video game that came out, and I think it was for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't think it was Super NES.
Yes, it was. It was.
That game scared the crap out of me. It was Jason himself as the killer in that game. Although the part where we get to see the mom's head in that cabin, like on the edge of the woods, and then like Jason shows up behind you, that gave me nightmares.
Yeah. Definitely pulling from later in the franchise, because that game has him wearing the hockey mask, which he doesn't get until 3. It features the mom's head and the sweater and all of that, which was a big plot point of 2. It just sort of matches some of the fun parts of some of those Friday the 13th together. He's in that ultra neon purple jumpsuit because it's Nintendo graphics. They could, only animate a specific way, but they did these audio drops. I remember, like, you'd be running along trying to go to the cabins to collect the kids, or kind of navigating first person through the houses, and then all of a sudden the music would go dun dun dun, and then it would change to like the kind of the Jason actions, and every time your heart would just shoot straight out of your asshole, because you knew like you were about to just get like chopped to pieces by fucking Jason.
That feeling of your heart shooting out of your asshole. That's when you know you're scared.
Oh, that's one way to put it. Let me actually put this up on the screen for anybody that's watching, Jim, just so you can get a chance to see what the graphics for this game look like. See what we're talking about.
Oh boy.
And this looks like nothing. But literally, when you are 8 years old playing this on your Nintendo Entertainment System, or however old I was, like, and he would pop out and start going ham with that machete. Like, it's terrifying. It is legit terrifying. In a way that, like, a lot of Nintendo horror games, I mean, there was a Friday the 13th game. There were a few. They couldn't quite capture just how scary it was.
That looked like it might have come out like after a couple of the sequels, probably, because it had Jason in there as a villain, right?
Yeah.
So it had to be pretty later, a little bit later on.
At least after 3.
I remember like fucking throwing rocks at Jason, and it just like taking nothing off of his health, and just being like, well, I guess I'll die now because that's all I have.
I remember, oh my God, this is how much I played this one. Chrissy and Mark were the ones, and there was another one who had the best jumping. And so when I was first exploring, I would play the other kids first, because if I died as them, I didn't care as much, because I wanted to protect Chrissy and Mark, because I wanted to be able to run and jump faster kind of towards the end. Gosh, that game was a lot of fun, and I want to play it again. There's sort of a resurgence in Friday the 13th games too. A few years ago, they came out with a kind of an uneven PvP style game with Friday the 13th, where up to
in fact,
you played that, Brad?
Sammy W from Denver. I have not, but Sammy W, we were visiting. He was kind of showing it to me a little bit. He plays it very heavily on Switch, and he fucking loves that game, and he's pretty brutal at it as Jason, I think.
Good on him for being good at Jason.
Brutal meaning what exactly? Like, he's
good.
Brutally good?
Just so, yeah, like the way that it works is like you get thrown into a multiplayer queue. It's online, babe. And one person is randomly selected to play Jason. You don't know who it's going to be until like the match starts. And but when he plays Jason, like, he has no mercy for the teens. I mean, just slash.
You get to pick any of the different Jasons in that one, and you have a bunch of kids who are like mostly kind of original creations of the game, like the rocker chick, the flirty girl, the jock, whatever. Although they did include the Shelley, the chubby jokester from the second one, and one other Fox from one of the later show movies as playable survivals. But yeah, it's incredibly effective. I play it some. I suck at it, but I also sometimes will just put it on Twitch and watch a little bit before going to bed, because you're just watching, like, you're watching every time you watch it. If you're just sitting back and just following the POV of like one like random person playing as a survivor or playing as Jason or whatever, you're just watching a unique little 15-minute horror movie every time you watch it, because it always plays out a little differently depending on you know, who wins and who doesn't. So
well, I just had an amazing idea, and I realize we've wandered so far off the topic, but that's okay. We should like run an emulator with the Friday the 13th NES game and like Twitch stream a playthrough of that while we all like laugh and joke at how bad whoever's playing is.
Oh, that'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun. I can tell you, I will absolutely suck at it, because I have now gotten to that. I don't know, Jim. I feel like I've gotten to that stage of just like being a video game player where like I was so much better as a kid, and like I'm to the point now where like I'm aware of that fact. But that would be a lot of fun, Brad. That game holds up. It's cheesy and it's Technicolor as hell. And the graphics are as lo-fi as you can get, but it's still a fun game.
Brad, is that one of the games on that like classic system we bought? The little mini one?
It's not. It's not. So that system only has like 20 games on it, and the Friday the 13th game I don't think was popular enough. Plus, they'd have to pay like new royalties, I think, to put it out officially.
Right. The
but
licensing,
like, people have like Raspberry Pis with these old like, you know, ROMs, and there's some questionable stuff with the legality there. But I mean, if a friend who just happens to have one of those just happened to leave it lying outside our front door, I mean, when we hooked up and played it, I mean, it's not.
You might have to just check it out to make sure it's not illegal, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would really hate for like someone else to pick it up off our doorstep and, you know, get into some kind of trouble, and we're gonna just save people from that. I think.
Of course. And then because you want to dispose of it, I think what you should do is try to dispose of it through wear and tear by plugging it into your television and just, you know, running through its battery and life a little bit. Yeah,
an accelerated
that's probably a good idea.
Test. Yeah.
The only problem is we don't have enough time, so we might need to extend our effort. So we may have to send it to you, just so that you can kind of help us out a little bit and ship it back and forth. Yeah. So yeah. Hey, final thought on our topic of the freaking episode, Friday the 13th. Ben Stark. Hey, Ben, good to see you. It says, one of my favorite memories of Friday the 13th was getting to meet Victor Miller, who wrote the film. This film was so important to my adolescence. Wicked cool that you got to meet Victor Miller. Ben, if you have any fun stories you want to share in the chat or moments you want to drop in, I'm like super curious how that meeting went down.
Yeah, that would be cool to hear about.
Yeah, I'm here for those types of things. One of my big regrets is that I haven't really done any horror conventions, and it's always because just the idea of going to a convention is always like, as someone who doesn't do well around like large crowds of people as a whole, like I have to really juice myself up for things like that. And so a few times I've almost pulled the trigger on a horror convention and then like talked myself out of it. And having now been separated from all other human beings for the last 5-6 months, I very much regret all of those like missed opportunities. So
who knows when you'll ever get
listen,
that chance.
Here's the thing. Two stories, two true stories that might make you feel a little bit better, Will, about not going to those things. A friend of mine went to Comic-Con a couple years ago, and somebody dressed up as Freddy Krueger And like, it was an incredibly convincing costume. Like, this person put tons of work into that costume. He was just hanging in a bathroom stall. And my friend was like washing his hands after he did his business. And Freddy like puts his claw up over the door and then like the claw like on the door. And it was like a fake claw. I think they were like plastic blades or something. And then he like pulled the door open. And my friend, who is in the bathroom, like obviously cosplay is a big thing there, but he didn't expect to see Freddy Krueger. And I guess it was a good thing he was in the restroom because he needed it again. And then another friend of mine went to a horror convention back not too long after Scream had come out. And there was a guy dressed up like in the ghost face mask. And, you know, like during the day of the convention inside, that's fine. But this guy was like meandering through the parking lot outside, like scaring people with his like fake bloody knife and mask. And I guess the guy got arrested or something. I don't know.
The second one, the second one's a pretty scary story because you don't know how far someone will take something, and at a certain point, that does sound a little bit like, you know, out of bounds harassment. The first one makes me want to rewrite the song. You know, like the 1, 2, Freddy's watching you, boo. You know.
3, 4, better bolt the door. Five,
that's the
6,
next one.
Better shake your pea stick.
Yeah, I can get very blue with these, so I shouldn't.
Stop looking at the other guy's dicks.
So anyways, that's a thing that now exists in the world.
Oh, goodness. All right, so Ben gave us some additional details here. He says he wrote a movie called Rock, Paper, Scissors. Of course, he's referring to Victor Miller. It premiered at the Nightmares Films Festival 2017, so a few years ago. He says he befriended the producer of that film over social media, initially about his dog. Oh, very cool. Ben's dog. When I realized they were all going to be in Columbus, we met up. That's awesome, Ben. Very cool. I love that social media these days, like, makes people like that so accessible. Like, you never know when a tweet or something that you send is going to gain traction. And they're like, oh my God, you're going to South by Southwest. So am I. Like, let's have a beer. And, you know, you think, that'll never happen. And then South by comes around and you get that email. It's like, hey, do you want to have a beer at the Alamo? Anyway, cool story, bro. That's awesome.
I love it.
I think I've reached my bro quotient.
They say never meet your heroes, but I strongly disagree with that. And it sounds like you had a wonderful experience meeting yours.
We should kiss, bro.
Oh my gosh, that's taking me to one of my favorite Eglyph shorts.
I like your query there.
Oh, nice. Well, that's a good way to rope that one in.
Yeah.
Speaking of Eglyph, you're going to hear more about that in just a minute. But before we wrap things up here, let's get some quick plugs in as we put a fork in our Friday the 13th discussion. And let's go to Will first. Will, what have you got that you want to put on our listeners' radar this week?
Okay, so this one is actually very, very on topic for this particular episode. So I talk about Shudder, the network, the little, like, you can have a Shudder add-on network on like Amazon for just a few bucks a month, and you absolutely should. They're giving great horror content on the regular and high quality stuff. They released a documentary that came out just a few weeks ago called In Search of Darkness. And this is a long documentary. It's 4 hours long. So it's like 4 hours and like 20 minutes long. So you're in for a ride, or you're in for a couple of nights of rides if you're like me. This movie is a blow-by-blow storytelling of horror movies in the 80s. It goes year by year, starting with 1980, ending in 1989, and goes over some of the more notable releases that came out each year, along with a bunch of the neat trends that came out. It talks about the score, it talks about the final girls, it talks about the commodization and fetishizing of the slasher, like the slashers as the protagonists instead of the antagonists that came out of the 80s. All of that in this 4.5-hour documentary, filled with all of the major people that are doing stuff in horror right now, whether it be filmmakers, whether it be people like James A. Janice, who does Dead Meat, which is it's a cool YouTube channel. If you haven't watched that, has Joe Bob Briggs and Darcy the Mail Girl, and just a lot of different people just there talking about horror. And it's such a love letter to all of these films. And honestly, if you have only scratched the surface of 80s horror, you'll probably also find a bunch of things that you maybe didn't even have on your radar. There's a couple of deeper cuts that are in there, not crazy underground cuts or anything like that, but a few things that are not just Freddy and Jason. It's a breezy watch. It does not feel like 4.5 hours. It feels like a good 2.5 or 3. But it flies by. You'll love all of these movies. You'll love hearing people talk about it. It's called In Search of Darkness. It's on Shudder, and I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to recommend a 4.5-hour documentary on this show, but this is one that I think I can do with pride.
Yeah, every 7 years or so, Will, you're entitled to doing one of those.
Yeah.
We're keeping track, though. It's got to be another 7 years.
Absolutely. I will sit on the next big documentary.
There you go. Hey, George is in the live chat with us. George says, first time watching your podcast. Handsome fellas.
A virgin.
We needed a virgin for a Friday the 13th movie discussion, didn't
we? George is our final girl or final boy or
final
something.
Guy.
Yeah, final guy.
George, I don't play Animal Crossing much anymore these days, but your idea of a scavenger hunt and hidden things on your island still intrigues me. So if you decide to do that at some point, I'll totally come back to Animal Crossing, because I was really, really pumped for that idea. It's a good one. Good to see you, George. Welcome. Jim.
Yes.
What have you got for plugs this week?
I've got another documentary, but instead of 4 hours, mine's 40 minutes.
Wow.
So this is a really breezy documentary, a very surprising documentary. It's on Netflix right now. So for all you folks who have Netflix, and I know there's a lot of you out there who have access to Netflix, check out the documentary called The Speedcubers. Speedcubers. It's a documentary that on the surface is about these dudes who compete, dudes and girls compete in a competition for speed solving Rubik's cubes of different configurations. I found out that there's more than just the regular Rubik's cube. There's 3x3s, 5x5s, 7x7s, and they all have world records associated with them and a world championship meet that they have once a year. But this documentary in 40 minutes doesn't just give you that about these people that are amazing at solving Rubik's cubes, big deal. But this is a really human story in here about kind of an uncommon competitive and friendly bond that occurs between two players in this. And it's about friendship. It's about empathy, which I thought was such a warm blanket in this kind of crazy world we're in, is to see how people should be treating each other. And it's called The Speedcubers. It's a 40-minute documentary, not a lot of time. So check it out. It's on Netflix right now.
Jim, I'm totally getting shades of, and I haven't seen Speedcubers, but I'm totally getting shades of when we were all at South by Southwest and we watched Wicker Kittens, which was it was on the sports track at South by Southwest, but it was about competitive jigsaw puzzles, and it was about a subject that I sat down thinking I don't know if I really want to watch a jigsaw puzzle movie. And it ended up making me really enjoy the game and the characters and the relationships. And it sounds like this follows a similar track.
It does, but it goes even further into the human side of things. There's a special relationship that this film highlights that I think is really wonderful to see.
I'm on board.
I won't spoil a thing.
Get your cubes out. Follow along.
I was never fucking good at Rubik's Cube. These fucking guys solve it in like under 10 seconds. We're talking.
That's crazy.
Like that's faster than I could peel off the stickers and put them on in the other spots. Like that's fast.
Yeah, like I couldn't solve one in days. Never mind seconds. It's crazy.
Guys, we got a follow-up comment from George about Animal Crossing. He says he stopped playing because he got super salty after losing 400,000 bells because he didn't know time traveling would rot his turnips. Here's the thing. You always got to remember. You always got to remember time travel has consequences. But George, I have like 50 million bells just chilling out on my character I'm not using. If you want that 400K back, I'd gladly give it to you because I'm not using it. So let me know, and I'll be happy to hook you up.
Plus, I think my sell rate is like 191 on my island right now. So, of course, my shop closes in 4 minutes. So sorry, guys.
Oh yeah. But there's a long week ahead, you know?
Is this that funny fucking around with time thing that you were talking about, babe?
Yeah, with Animal Crossing,
yes
people can kind of like cheat by fast forwarding and rewinding the date on their Switch so that they can, you know, like get all kinds of money and duplicate items and all kinds of stuff.
You don't have to get into the details, but
yeah. But it is unfortunate because if you don't, if you don't know necessarily all the ins and outs of doing it, you could inadvertently like fuck your shit up pretty bad. So, not to say, George, that's necessarily what you did, but there can be unintended consequences.
It sucks when stuff like that happens, and I totally get it. I would be salty too. I have been saltier over smaller things in video games, so I get it, George.
Brad, what's your plug?
Well, speaking of video games, I'm going to plug a video game. And I'm trying to remember if I plugged it before. Did I plug Ghost of Tsushima? Did I already plug that?
I don't think so.
I don't know. Plug it. Just do it. Yeah. Okay. Even if you did, do it.
I'm just going to plug it. I don't think I did. With everything going on right now, like, I don't know. I've really fallen back into gaming as like a way of mental escape. Not to unhealthy levels, I don't think. Jim, I rely on you to let me know if my gaming ever becomes, an unhealthy amount of time. Time has been expended, nothing more. But in this quarantine, games have just been a really just great way for me to kind of lose myself into these awesome stories. I finished Horizon Zero Dawn a few weeks ago, and I needed something new to play. And Ghost of Tsushima had just come out. And I didn't know anything about this game. But all of a sudden, I saw like a bunch of my friends were playing it. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting by the title. Let me look it up. And it turned out to be this like samurai game where the main character is like the last remaining samurai on an island in Japan, and the island has been taken over by Mongols who are raping and pillaging everything in sight. And as this character Jin, it's up to you to like reclaim the island, reclaim your honor, and da 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 da. And so on the surface, I'm like, man, I love samurai movies. We've been watching the Zatoichi samurai movies that Sammy W turned us on to, and we've been having a lot of fun with those. But I was like, I don't really know. Like, I was still kind of mourning Horizon Zero Dawn and having completed that. But then I found out that Ghost of Tsushima has a black and white Kurosawa mode. You can play the game as if it's an old black and white samurai movie. And I'm like, fuck, I am sold. So I bought the game, and I've been playing a ton of it over the last couple of weeks. The game is so beautiful. I don't really turn the black and white mode on for long periods of time anymore. Because like when the cherry blossom petals are falling and you're sitting in a hot spring naked and foxes are running by, like I want to see that beautiful, vibrant color. But there's just so many wonderful things about this film. And this film, about this game, because it's, at least so far, I've put about 20 hours into it. I feel like I've just been watching a really like long samurai movie series. Like the game is divided into 3 acts. I'm in the 2nd act right now. Just started it. Very satisfying story. If you love old samurai movies, if you love like old spaghetti westerns, which are themselves a take on samurai films, this game is probably for you, especially if you're looking for something right now to get into. I will say it is a little brutal. It's a little gory when you're killing Mongols. I mean, there's blood spurting everywhere. But there's a lot of beauty.
Humanity.
This game even has you fucking like composing haiku. Like you sit in a very beautiful spot in nature, and it's just like, here are some lines to choose from. Like create a haiku out of them. And Jim, I know you've come in the room a couple times while I've been playing. It probably looks really weird just to see like 5 seconds of it at a time. But it's a lot of fun. It's great. And I got to pet a fox, which really made me happy.
I saw something super wholesome about that. There was like, so video game like designers have analytics, right? Like they can track however many times that certain things happen. And the number of times that fox was petted was like a stupid high number of things. Wow. It was just, yeah. And it became just like this super wholesome content. Just like, yeah, the number of times people have just like stopped killing things to pet the fox has been, you know, however many hundreds of thousands. And I love that. I love that. That's so cool.
An island of tenderness in this sea of fucking horror and brutal killings.
Listen, it's just me, my horse Nobu, and my blade. Nice. Indeed. Well, we are long in the tooth. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. We're going to let you know where you can interact with us online here in just moments. But Will, if you wouldn't mind, because there's one more weekend of A-Glyph coming up, could you just give us a quick little mini plug, if you will, on A-Glyph and what we're doing?
Absolutely. Movie Bears Podcast has partnered with A-Glyph, the All Genders, Lifestyles, and Identities Film Festival out of Austin, Texas. Weekend 1 has passed, but weekend 2 is coming up starting this Thursday the 13th and running through Sunday the 16th. What we're doing is the Movie Bears Podcast midday movie babble break, where we interview some of the filmmakers about the films that they have in the festival. So the interviews are free. There's a badge price to attend. It's, I think the second weekend, it's like $35 for the entire weekend. So it's like a super affordable price. You have to live in Texas to view a lot of the films themselves. The interviews and the extra content, the free stuff is open to, you know, is not geo-locked. But to find out more about it, if you are interested at all, just go to aglyph.org. And the schedule and the events and all that stuff is there. Plus, we'll be releasing some of the content through our platforms here in the coming days in some capacity or another.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff coming up about the festival, and you know, talking to some of these filmmakers has been pretty, you know, fantastic, informative, and special for us to get to do and support a great festival. So. Yeah, we'll be getting that out in the next couple of days. So check our feed out on YouTube and on your podcast feed for our bonus coverage of A-Glyph.
Check your local Movie Bear listings.
It's a lot of man, just a lot of great film coming out of this festival, and I'm so glad that they're able to do it virtually this year. And hey, anytime I get to talk to a filmmaker who made a film about rope play bondage is a pretty good time in my book.
Yep.
Maybe.
I'm super jazzed for A-Glyph, and definitely, you know, if you're in Texas, jump in, watch some films. If you're not in Texas, still worth checking out the interviews that we're doing, because some of these films may be picked up for distribution, some may become available to watch. We can help with some additional things on your radar. So keep an eye out. Jim, where can people chat with you online between now and our next recording?
You can find me mostly talking about movies on Twitter. My handle is at JJP Out West. Those are my initials, JJP Out West, all one word. Or just look me up on Facebook. Jim Pugliafico. That's my name right here, down here, right here. Jim Pugliafico. Find me on Facebook.
All right. Thank you. Will, how about you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. I'm at whatever cove. I don't post a ton there, but you know, I'm there. I have a presence. You can also find me on Facebook. My name is William Lindish. Just look beneath my chin if you're watching live. Otherwise, just put it in the search on Facebook, and you'll probably come across a William Lindish who has a beard. It's important that you add that one and not the other one. Just send me a note so I know who you are and that you found me through the show, and I'd be happy to add you back. And also, you can find me on letterboxd.com. I review every film that I've seen within the year there. Every year I do that, and I love connecting with other movie fans there. I'm up to like 245 movies this year, and granted,
Wow.
Aglyph has been a huge chunk of those because we're watching so many right now. But there's a lot out there, and I'm star rating them all.
Quarantine definitely helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at iBradPro. It's right here on the screen if you're watching the video. I just made that rhyme. How fine. Anyway, you can also find me on Facebook. It's late. I'm punchy. Don't judge me. Just search for Brad Harris on Facebook. I'm the one. Well, the other Brad Harris doesn't have a Confederate flag behind him anymore, but like I'm the chubby guy with a beard and glasses. So I probably have Chub Chaser Bear friends in common with you. But yeah, send a message first. Want to make sure you're not a bot. Please answer the question, what is 3 + 7 × 2? If you answer it correctly, I'll know you're not a bot. Just kidding. I don't even remember what the equation was anymore. You could literally reply any number and I'd be like, yeah, you're real. I would not be a very good like infosec guy. I just wouldn't, unfortunately.
You're just going to get a bunch of people throwing the number 69 and 420 in your chat, and you'll be saying like, is that the number you wanted?
Now you have to post it on your feed.
Oh no! What have I done?
What have I done?
All right, everybody. Well, listen. Just wanted to thank everyone who joined us on the live show tonight on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We had a ton of folks watching and a bunch of comments in the chat. We didn't get to read all of them, but so great seeing folks like Patrick and Ben and George and hey, Tony, I just saw you sneak in there. Good to see you too. Colin, Steve, I feel like Romper Room, Romper Stomper, Romper Boo.
Romper.
But we love you all. And if you're not with us on the live show, if you're tuning in through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., we love you just as much. Feel free to drop us a line on Facebook or Twitter. If you want to talk about Friday the 13th, we got more to talk about. So we would happily engage with you. Just shoot a message over. Patrick says, this was great. Thank you for saying hi. Patrick, thank you for saying hi. It was really, really cool to reconnect, and we'll definitely have to chat more soon. Love you all. See you next time. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.